What if Emperor Palpatine's greatest fear became his greatest weapon? What if, instead of worrying that multiple Sith Lords would overthrow him, he discovered a way to make them completely loyal while multiplying his power across the galaxy? Picture this: not dozens of rival Sith plotting against each other, but a perfectly orchestrated dark side hierarchy where rebellion becomes nearly impossible. Today we're diving into a timeline where Palpatine doesn't just abandon the rule of two, he replaces it with something far more insidious. A system that makes the Rebel Alliance struggle to find support, transforms Darth Vader into an even more terrifying enforcer, and turns Imperial rule into something that feels beneficial while slowly corrupting the very soul of the galaxy. But this change doesn't just add more villains to the story, it creates a form of tyranny so subtle that its victims willingly embrace their own enslavement. 18 months after Order 66, Emperor Palpatine faces an unexpected crisis that changes everything. The galaxy is too vast, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is Darth Vader. His apprentice, crippled and dependent, lacks the subtle political skills needed to govern effectively. Vader can enforce through fear and violence, but he cannot inspire the kind of fanatical loyalty that Palpatine needs to maintain long-term control. More critically, Palpatine realizes that his own mortality creates a succession problem. In the traditional rule of two, the apprentice eventually kills the master. But Palpatine has no intention of dying. He needs a system where he remains at the apex permanently, with subordinates who are powerful enough to be effective but psychologically incapable of rebellion. The solution comes from studying pre-Rule of Two Sith history, specifically the techniques used by Darth Sidious, who maintained control over multiple Sith Lords for centuries through force bonding rituals. Palpatine discovers that he can create what he calls Sith Vassals, Force users bound to him through dark side alchemy that makes betraying him literally impossible, while amplifying their loyalty-driven power. Unlike traditional Sith apprentices, who are encouraged to grow strong enough to challenge their masters, these Sith vassals become more powerful the more devoted they are to Palpatine. Their Force abilities actually increase through absolute loyalty rather than personal ambition. This creates a system where rebellion weakens them while obedience strengthens them, a perfect inversion of traditional Sith psychology. Palpatine spends 2 years developing and perfecting the vassalage ritual before implementing it. Unlike Jedi, who sought Force-sensitive children, or traditional Sith, who recruited ambitious apprentices, Palpatine targets a very specific type of candidate: mid-level Imperial administrators and military officers who show minor Force sensitivity combined with absolute loyalty to the Empire. The ideal candidates are individuals who already believe completely in Imperial ideology and have demonstrated unwavering obedience throughout their careers. The ritual doesn't corrupt them, it amplifies their existing dedication while awakening their dormant Force abilities. This process takes approximately 2 years per candidate, making it a carefully planned expansion rather than rushed recruitment. The first Sith vassal created through this process is Moff Jerek, who governs the Corellian sector. His transformation demonstrates the ritual's effectiveness. His Force abilities manifest specifically as enhanced strategic thinking and supernatural loyalty to Imperial doctrine. He doesn't develop traditional Sith powers like Force lightning, but instead gains abilities that make him a more effective administrator and military commander. Over the following 4 years, Palpatine creates 6 additional Sith vassals beyond Jerek, bringing the total to 7. Vassal Krennic governing mid-rim industrial worlds, Vassal Strategus overseeing core world politics, Vassal Corwin handling tactical coordination across multiple sectors, Vassal Apex controlling outer rim territories, Vassal Geneticus managing medical and scientific operations, and Vassal Dominion commanding the expansion regions. Each develops Force abilities that complement their existing skills, appearing to be exceptionally effective governors operating independently, but they're actually components in a synchronized network that spans the galaxy. The genius of Palpatine's system lies in its network structure. Each vassal is connected not just to Palpatine, but to all other vassals through the Force bond. They don't need to know about each other's identities because they can sense each other's activities and coordinate unconsciously through their shared connection to the Emperor. When Vassal Krennic needs industrial resources, he intuitively knows to contact certain Imperial suppliers. When Vassal Strategus requires intelligence, he automatically reaches out to the right contacts. Darth Vader remains separate from this system, serving as Palpatine's enforcer and the public face of Sith power. However, Vader maintains an unconscious Force connection to the network that allows him to coordinate with the Vassals during galaxy-wide operations without knowing their true identities. The Vassals operate in complete secrecy, appearing to be remarkably successful governors rather than Force users. This creates a two-tier system. Vader handles obvious threats and maintains fear, while the Vassals implement subtle, comprehensive control. The impact on potential rebellion becomes apparent within 5 years of the first Vassal appointments. Unlike the original timeline, where Imperial control was concentrated in core systems, the Vassals create comprehensive surveillance networks that extend into every aspect of civilian life within their sectors. The Vassals' approach proves devastatingly effective. Krennic psychologically profiles entire populations, redirecting potential rebel sympathizers into fanatically loyal Imperial supporters who believe the transformation was their own idea. Corwin uses Force-enhanced tactical thinking to predict and dismantle resistance networks before they even form. These interventions appear completely natural. Citizens experience economic opportunities and reforms that address their grievances before rebellion becomes appealing. The Empire doesn't crush dissent. It makes organized resistance nearly impossible by removing the conditions that create it while subtly eroding the will to resist. Mon Mothma never forms a rebellion because Sith Vassal Strategus, assigned to monitor core world politics, provides her with a series of carefully orchestrated political victories within the Imperial Senate. She achieves meaningful reforms for her constituents through official channels, removing her motivation to rebel while unknowingly serving as a tool to legitimize Imperial rule. Bail Organa experiences similar redirected success, becoming one of the Empire's most effective senators while never realizing his genuine desire to help people is being weaponized against potential resistance movements. The Vassal network's influence extends to every potential resistance leader across the galaxy. Captain Antilles finds himself promoted to positions where he can implement meaningful change within Imperial naval regulations. His reforms serving double duty by improving conditions while creating loyalty among military personnel. Jan Dodonna receives opportunities to reform Imperial military academies, channeling his strategic brilliance into training officers who become unknowing agents of the Vassal system. Most insidiously, the Vassals identify and co-opt Force-sensitive individuals who might have become threats to Imperial rule. Instead of hunting them down like traditional Sith, the Vassals offer these individuals meaningful roles within the Imperial structure, while slowly corrupting their connection to the Force. Former Jedi Padawan survivors find themselves becoming Imperial advisors, their Force sensitivity gradually twisted toward dark side techniques disguised as enhanced effectiveness. Their natural desire to help people gets fulfilled through Imperial social programs, but at the cost of their spiritual integrity. The effects of the Vassal system extend far beyond preventing rebellion. Each Sith Vassal transforms their assigned sector according to their specializations, creating prosperity that comes with hidden costs. Unlike traditional Imperial governors who rule through obvious fear and exploitation, the Vassals use their Force-enhanced empathy to understand what their citizens need while ensuring those needs serve Imperial purposes. Vassal Krennic doesn't just extract resources from mid-rim industrial worlds. He revolutionizes working conditions and creates profit-sharing programs that make factory workers enthusiastic supporters of Imperial rule. However, his Force-enhanced understanding of psychology allows him to design systems where increased prosperity comes with decreased independence. Workers become more comfortable but less capable of imagining alternatives to Imperial rule. Their improved lives create a golden cage that they mistake for freedom. Vassal Strategus transforms core world politics by implementing reforms that address long-standing grievances without actually redistributing power. He uses his force abilities to sense the genuine concerns of senators and their constituents, then crafts legislation that provides symbolic solutions while strengthening the Empire's control. Political opposition doesn't get crushed. It gets absorbed and redirected into debates over implementation details rather than fundamental principles. On Outer Rim worlds, Vassal Apex takes a more direct approach. Instead of the neglect these regions experienced in the original timeline, he implements comprehensive development programs that bring education, healthcare, and infrastructure to previously forgotten systems. However, these improvements come with imperial cultural integration that gradually erases local traditions and independent thinking. His force sensitivity allows him to identify natural leaders within these communities and either co-opt them into imperial service or eliminate them through seemingly natural misfortunes. The transformation creates something unprecedented in galactic history, an empire that improves material conditions while systematically destroying the spiritual and cultural foundations that might challenge imperial authority. Traditional imperial brutality becomes unnecessary because the vassals create systems where resistance feels both ungrateful and illogical. Citizens don't fear the empire. They become psychologically dependent on it while losing the capacity for independent thought. Most disturbingly, the vassal system begins attracting membership from independent systems, not through voluntary choice, but through carefully orchestrated crises that make imperial protection seem necessary. Worlds that remained neutral during the Clone Wars find themselves facing mysterious pirate attacks, economic difficulties, or natural disasters that imperial forces conveniently arrive to solve. The grateful populations petition to join the Empire, never realizing their problems were artificially created to generate exactly this response. This manufactured expansion allows the Empire to extend its reach into regions that were previously impossible to control. The unknown regions, wild space and other frontier territories become integrated into imperial society through what appears to be benevolent aid, but is actually sophisticated psychological conquest. The Empire grows not through honest voluntary integration, but through manipulation so skillful that its victims believe they made free choices. The presence of 7 synchronized Sith Vassals creates an unprecedented phenomenon in Force history. Unlike the chaotic dark side corruption that competing Sith Lords generate, the Vassals' unified loyalty creates a harmonized dark side influence that permeates Imperial space, while disguising its true nature. The network's power feels warm and comforting rather than obviously threatening, making its corruption far more insidious than traditional Sith influence. This harmonized darkness doesn't prevent light side Force use entirely, but it subtly corrupts the motivations behind Force abilities throughout Imperial territory. Force-sensitive individuals find their powers work more effectively when used to support Imperial goals, while attempts to resist Imperial authority feel increasingly difficult and morally questionable. The network doesn't force compliance. It makes compliance feel virtuous while making resistance feel selfish and destructive. For surviving Jedi who enter Imperial space, this influence creates a particularly insidious trap. Their traditional powers don't diminish dramatically, but using them for resistance becomes psychologically exhausting while using them for Imperial service feels natural and righteous. Many don't even realize they're being influenced. They simply find themselves drawn to interpretations of Jedi philosophy that support Imperial stability and order. The few who recognize the corruption face an agonizing choice between spiritual integrity and the apparent greater good. The network's influence extends to the ancient Force spirits that occasionally manifest throughout the galaxy. While light side spirits find their ability to intervene increasingly limited, dark side entities and morally ambiguous ancient rulers begin appearing more frequently to offer guidance and support for Imperial expansion. These spirits don't present themselves as evil. They appear as wise advisors promoting stability, prosperity, and order. Their counsel seems reasonable and beneficial, making their dark nature nearly impossible to detect. Most tragically, the network begins influencing the Force itself in ways that corrupt traditional prophecies and visions. Force-sensitive individuals receive genuine visions of peaceful, prosperous futures under Imperial rule, but these visions are carefully edited to exclude the spiritual costs and long-term consequences of that prosperity. Prophecies about balance in the Force become twisted to suggest that Imperial order represents the balance needed to prevent chaos and suffering. The Jedi teachings about the dangers of the dark side seem increasingly outdated and extremist when contrasted with the apparent success of Imperial rule. Young Force sensitives who might have become Jedi instead embrace philosophies that blend light and dark side techniques in service of Imperial stability. They genuinely believe they're creating a better galaxy while unknowingly becoming instruments of spiritual tyranny. This fundamental shift in how the Force operates creates cascading effects throughout the galaxy. Criminal activities become less profitable and more dangerous as the network's influence makes honest Imperial service feel more rewarding. Corrupt officials find their schemes consistently failing, while loyal service brings unexpected benefits. The Force itself seems to reward Imperial loyalty, but this apparent blessing is actually a form of spiritual enslavement that strips away free will while maintaining the illusion of choice. 24 years after Order 66, the galaxy has achieved something that appears unprecedented in its history: widespread peace and prosperity under unified rule. The Empire spans from the core worlds to the furthest reaches of the unknown regions, maintained not through obvious oppression, but through sophisticated psychological control. Crime rates have plummeted, material prosperity has increased dramatically, and technological advancement has accelerated, but these improvements come at a cost that few recognize. The Death Star, when completed, serves not as an obvious weapon of terror, but as the ultimate expression of Imperial benevolence. Its planet-destroying capability remains intact, but it's publicly used to eliminate genuine threats like plague-infected worlds beyond saving, dangerous asteroid fields, and other obstacles to galactic development. Citizens see it as a tool of protection and progress, never realizing that its true purpose is to eliminate any world that might develop genuine resistance to Imperial control. Darth Vader, empowered by his connection to the Vassal network, becomes more effective than ever as both warrior and administrator. His role as the Empire's public face allows him to inspire genuine loyalty rather than mere fear. But this loyalty is based on carefully cultivated ignorance of his true nature. Citizens across the galaxy see Vader as a protector and problem solver, never understanding that their admiration is being psychologically manufactured through Force manipulation. Yet beneath this veneer of success lies a galaxy slowly dying spiritually and culturally. The network's influence has created a population that is materially comfortable but spiritually hollow, prosperous but incapable of genuine growth or independent thought. Children grow up in systems that provide for their physical needs, while systematically stunting their emotional and intellectual development. Art, literature, and philosophy gradually conform to Imperial themes, not through censorship, but through the population's loss of ability to conceive of alternatives. Most insidiously, the galaxy's population becomes addicted to the very system that enslaves them. Attempts to introduce genuine freedom or independence create anxiety and resistance because people have lost the psychological capacity to handle true choice. The Empire doesn't need to maintain control through force because its subjects genuinely cannot imagine existing without Imperial guidance and protection. But this perfect system contains a vulnerability that neither Palpatine nor his vassals fully understand. The spiritual stagnation they've created has consequences that extend beyond the material world, attracting attention from forces that exist beyond the normal boundaries of the Force itself. But 24 years after the Vassal network's creation, something unprecedented begins happening at Force-sensitive locations throughout the galaxy. Ancient Jedi temples, Sith ruins, and other places strong in the Force start resonating with energy patterns that don't match either light or dark side signatures. These disturbances aren't random. They're synchronized, purposeful, and growing stronger. When Vassal Geneticus investigates these phenomena as part of his scientific duties, his Force-enhanced analysis reveals something that shakes him to his core. The energy patterns aren't coming from within the galaxy, they're responses to it. Something vast and ancient, existing in the spaces between light and dark, has been awakened by the Vassal network's unprecedented manipulation of the Force itself. These aren't invaders or conquerors in any traditional sense. They're manifestations of the Force's own will, drawn by the network's violation of fundamental spiritual principles. For the first time since the network's creation, the Vassals encounter something their unified system cannot predict, understand, or control: the Force itself, awakening to correct what it perceives as an abomination. And when these entities finally reveal their intentions, when the Empire realizes that their perfect system has attracted the attention of the Force's own immune system. If you've enjoyed this journey through an alternate Star Wars timeline, there are more untold stories waiting to be discovered. Join our growing community of Star Wars enthusiasts who believe in exploring these what-if moments that could have changed the galaxy far, far away. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and activate notifications to catch our next alternative Star Wars story. Each tale offers a new perspective on the characters we love and the choices that define them. Remember to share your thoughts in the comments below. What other pivotal moments in the Star Wars saga would you like to see explored differently? Your ideas might inspire our next adventure. May the Force be with you, always.